Okay, imagine this. You're a legal professional, right? You step into a courtroom expecting the usual, the rhythm of justice, the law applied fairly.
The standard procedure.
But then, as you're taking it all in, something feels, well, decidedly off. It's less like a normal judicial process and more
Yeah.
like a play.
A performance.
Exactly. A scene playing out from a script you haven't seen,
Oh.
and you kind of feel like the ending's already been decided.
Yeah, that's an unsettling feeling, entering a place that's supposed to be impartial only to suspect the scales are already tipped. It's
Yeah.
disorienting.
And that exact feeling, it's really central to the story we're digging into today. It's drawn from our source material called Justice Exposed, A Courtroom Reckoning.
Right.
So this deep dive unpacks a specific event involving Pam Bondi and what the source claims happened in one particular courtroom.
And the material, it really sets the stage with this stark detail. Pam Bondi gets this sterile, anonymous message, a warning about a court appearance she has coming up.
Just out of the blue.
Seems like it. And the message was blunt. It basically said, it's not a hearing, it's a setup.
Wow. A setup. For what, exactly? The official notice she got was for administrative contempt.
Which is, not criminal, more about disrupting court procedures.
And the reason given, being just 7 minutes late. 7 minutes late to a prior procedural appearance.
Seems minor, doesn't it?
It does. And the proposed penalty was a $1,200 fine and an optional reprimand.
But see, the source really emphasizes that word optional. It wasn't framed as, genuine flexibility.
How so?
Well, the material presents it more cynically, kind of suggesting the hidden message was, we'll see how well you beg, or maybe we'll see how useful it is to humiliate you on camera.
Oof. So suggesting the penalty wasn't just administrative, but potentially punitive in public.
Exactly. And the source points a finger at Judge Tanya Chutkin as the one supposedly directing this legal theater.
Judge Chutkin.
Yeah, she's described in the material as someone who measured loyalty, not just the letter of the law, and her sense of neutrality. The source says it had the sharp edge of a guillotine.
That's quite a description. It implies she wasn't just presiding, but maybe performing a role.
That's the implication, yes. And that warning Bondi got, the source attributes it to an insider.
An insider.
And this insider apparently indicated it wasn't just about Bondi. The claim was the real target was much broader.
Okay, so this is where it widens out.
Considerably. The insider reportedly claimed the targeting went after legal defense accounts, specifically those linked to Trump's circle and others involved in, post-election legal work.
Really? Like who?
Well, the source lists names like Navarro, Meadows, but also mentions others, ranging from interns and former DOJ officials all the way to a clerk from a Michigan election integrity group, even a Florida law professor.
So wide net.
A very wide net. And the strategy, according to this insider in the source, it was described as retroactive targeting. Basically looking back, finding reasons, any reason, to penalize people. And also an effort to kneecap what's left of the resistance, as the source puts it.
Paints a picture of administrative rules maybe being weaponized based on politics?
That's the picture the source paints, yeah. Using rules based on political affiliation or past work.
So our mission here in this deep dive is to explore how this alleged legal trap unfolded, based on the source material, of course.
Right, how Bondi responded, how she challenged it.
And what the source claims were the ripple effects, potentially pretty significant ones, that might have exposed systemic issues within the justice system itself. Let's unpack the scene.
Okay, so the material describes the specific atmosphere when Bondi arrived at the courthouse for this appearance. There were reporters waiting outside.
Already a bit of a spectacle then.
Yeah, and a sense of stepping onto a prepared set, like the sequence of events felt scripted already.
And inside the courtroom, courtroom 3B.
The source notes it was unusual, filled with staffers, lots of recording screens, but not the usual crowd like, journalists or law students observing.
Again, that feeling of a stage being set.
Exactly, a stage for a specific performance. And Judge Chutkin was there, described as, again, performing, not just presiding.
And the tension.
Immediate, according to the report, yeah. The source quotes Judge Chutkin's first remark to Bondi when she arrived, perceived as a pointed jab.
What did she say?
Nice of you to join us. This isn't Fox News.
Wow. Okay. The material suggests it was meant to underline the perceived political framing right from the start.
Right from the bench, yeah. And what the source presents as a really telling contrast happened just before Bondi's case came up. Rick Alvarez. He's identified as a former strategic advisor to the DNC. He was apparently 20 minutes late for his appearance.
20 minutes. In the same courtroom, before the same judge.
Same courtroom, same judge. And according to the material,
Let me guess. Fine.
no fine, no reprimand, no pointed remarks at all. He was just allowed to take his seat. His excuse apparently dismissed with a smile.
The source uses that comparison to highlight what it sees as a major disparity then.
A stark contrast, yeah. So when it was Bondi's turn, just 7 minutes late, Judge Chutkin's response, as described, was to immediately frame it as contempt.
Select that.
And the source quotes the judge directly, specifically referencing Bondi's background. And given your background, Miss Bondi, I trust you understand what contempt looks like.
Like saying, you, of all people, should know better. Presented as an accusation carrying extra weight because of who she is.
Exactly. But what's striking in the source's account is Bondi's response. She didn't just, offer a simple excuse for being late.
Right, she stayed calm, apparently. Her explanation, according to the material, was that her delay was directly because she was responding to an internal federal alert.
An alert about what?
About unlawful interference with legal defense operations.
Yeah.
And she added, quite pointedly, the source says, that the court may soon find itself obligated to review this very interference.
Oh, turning it back on the court.
And then she reportedly added this provocative remark about bringing a latte and a DNC badge.
Which the source uses to really underscore the political double standard she felt she was seeing, right? And challenging it right there?
Yeah. The source says she didn't actually argue about the 7 minutes itself.
No. What was her argument then?
She challenged what she saw as a fundamental lack of impartiality in the whole proceeding. She reportedly said she was standing where the Constitution allows and insisted the law should be applied, as written.
Uniformly.
Exactly. Not interpreted through some partisan lens.
So the material kind of frames her using her background as a former prosecutor as basically flipping the script, turning the focus away from her minor administrative thing onto the court's own actions.
The potential for bias. Yeah, significantly shifting the dynamic in the room, according to the source.
And she didn't just challenge it verbally, did she? The source said she presented evidence.
She did. First piece mentioned is a DOJ timeline.
Okay, what did that show?
This timeline, as reported, confirms she was actually in a classified session about judicial overreach during the exact window she was late.
So, a legitimate reason. How did the judge react to that?
Well, the source notes Judge Chutkin initially dismissed it. Said the court wasn't obligated to consider justifications for lateness.
Even for something like that.
Apparently. But Bondi reportedly pushed back. Asked if that dismissal holds true, even when that justification involves interference in active legal defense funds being targeted based on political affiliation.
Ah, so connecting her specific delay to the bigger picture she was alleging.
Precisely. And then she escalated. Requested the court's sanction log be pulled up.
The sanction log? What's that?
That's like the court's internal record of minor administrative penalties, violations, that sort of thing.
Got it.
And the source describes her putting a USB drive on the clerk's desk. It contained a formal DOJ request she had already submitted.
A DOJ request for what?
For 6 months' worth of administrative sanctions data from that specific courthouse.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Her rationale, as the source presents it, was pretty straightforward. Look, if people are getting penalized for stuff like being late, that penalty should be applied blind, right? Without considering politics.
Makes sense. So what did the data show? Did they actually display it?
They did, according to the source. Displayed right there on the screen in the courtroom. And the key points detailed are, well, quite something.
Let's hear them.
Okay, reporting period to the past 6 months. Total administrative sanction cases recorded, 73.
Okay.
Now, the breakdown by political affiliations was based on DOJ filings, campaign disclosures, that kind of public record info.
Right.
Republican-affiliated or Trump-linked defendants. 68 sanctioned cases out of 73 total.
Wow. 68 out of 73.
68. Then, progressive NGO defendants. 0 cases listed as excused or no action taken.
Yeah.
0.
0.
And then other affiliations. 5 cases, and they received minor warnings.
That is a stark difference. That's barely subtle if those numbers are accurate.
The source definitely presents it as stark.
Yeah.
And then Bondi reportedly presented the next slide, revisiting that earlier comparison.
With Rick Alvarez.
Exactly. It explicitly showed Rick Alvarez, former strategic advisor DNC, court appearance 20 minutes late, judicial response, no cause for penalty, warning verbally dismissed, judge of record, Tanya Chutkin.
Just laying it out side by side.
Yep. And Bondi reportedly called this evidence, not opinion, but arithmetic.
Arithmetic. I like that.
And when the judge apparently suggested, statistics can be interpreted lots of ways,
Uh-huh.
Bondi's response, as quoted, was sharp, contrasting statistics with fairy tales, saying only one explains finding people $1,200 for being 6 minutes late if they voted the wrong way.
Correct. But she wasn't done yet, was she? There was more evidence described.
One more major piece, according to the source, a leaked internal communication
From where?
from the court's own administrative office.
No kidding. What did it say?
The source quotes the key phrase directly from this alleged email. As of the 10th of January, we've been directed to automatically flag and penalize individuals with known GOP affiliations for any administrative violations. Discretion to be minimized for optics purposes.
Whoa. Discretion to be minimized for optics purposes. That's pretty damning, if true.
That's what the source claims it said. And Bondi's interpretation, reportedly stated right there.
What was it?
This isn't enforcement. This is theater, and we all just found out who's writing the script.
And the reaction in the room.
According to the source, that moment just dramatically changed everything. A palpable shift.
How so?
The gallery, which had been quiet, started reacting openly. People were recording on their phones. And the judge's demeanor, the source says, shifted, no longer leading, but reacting.
Wow, and then didn't others start speaking up too?
Yeah, that's what the source recounts. Voices from the gallery, adding these personal stories that seem to just echo the data in that email.
Like what kind of stories?
Well, one example given is an older man. He reportedly spoke up, said he'd been fined $300 for being 5 minutes late right after chemotherapy. And he said he was told, you people need to learn accountability.
Hey, people. Yikes.
Any others mentioned?
Yeah, a woman lawyer. She described colleagues feeling defeated before they even argued their cases, like they felt trained to expect defeat because the outcome felt rigged, based on things other than the law.
That feeling of a predetermined outcome again?
Exactly. And the source notes that footage of all this, Bondi's arguments, the data on the screen, that email, quote, the judge's reaction, it got out.
How?
Captured on phones, apparently, and spread fast on social media, reportedly trended nationally.
So it blew up beyond the courtroom.
Oh, yeah. And not just social media. The source indicates legal scholars, even on centrist blogs, started looking at the data that was now public.
And their take. Their conclusion, according to the source, was that the apparent bias looked systemic, statistically evident, and now undeniably public.
So it had real-world consequences then, beyond online chatter.
Big time, according to the source. Triggered significant actions. On Capitol Hill, the House Judiciary Committee, which the source kind of implies had been maybe hesitant before, announced a formal inquiry into patterns of ideological targeting within the judiciary.
A formal inquiry. Okay.
And legislative action reportedly followed pretty quickly, too. A bipartisan draft bill emerged.
Bipartisan? What was it called?
The Judicial Integrity and Transparency Act.
Yeah.
And the source outlines 3 key demands in it.
Which were?
1, a total ban on political expression by sitting federal judges. 2, mandatory publication of all judicial disciplinary records. And 3, forming a permanent citizen-led oversight board.
Wow, those are significant proposals. Real structural changes.
Definitely. And there were consequences reported for Judge Chutkin herself.
What happened there?
Suspended. Reportedly suspended pending a review by the Office of Judicial Conduct.
On what grounds?
The source cites the stated reasons as credible patterns of partiality abuse of discretion and politically motivated sanctioning.
So direct fallout for the judge involved.
Seems so. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi. The source notes she did pay the $1,200 fine.
She paid it.
Yep. But she reportedly displayed the receipt publicly with a handwritten line on it.
Oh, what did it say?
I paid the fine, they paid the price.
A pointed message.
And the momentum from this, according to the source, it didn't just stop there. Bondi apparently spoke later at George Washington University Law School.
Carrying the message forward.
Yet delivering a line that reportedly resonated with students. Justice doesn't lean left or right, it stands tall.
Nice line.
And inspired by this whole thing, the source reports a group of second-year law students actually launched something called Civic Bench Watch.
Civic Bench Watch? What's that?
Described as an independent watchdog group dedicated to monitoring courtroom bias across the country.
Run by students.
Yeah. And their motto is, apparently, we don't care what side you're on. If you bend the law for politics, we'll straighten the record.
Straighten the record. Interesting. So, pulling all these threads together from the source material, what's the big takeaway?
Well, it seems like a seemingly small administrative issue, right? being a few minutes late for court.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. It allegedly became this catalyst, exposed really significant questions about potential bias, about political targeting, right within the justice system itself, at least according to this document.
Yeah, the narrative presented definitely raises that fundamental question about accountability, doesn't it?
Totally. If the ideal is blind justice,
Yeah.
law applied equally regardless of who you are or what you believe, but there's this perception, maybe backed by data like the source presented, that it is picking sides. Then who holds the power? Who holds the gavel accountable? How does that work?
It really leaves you, the listener, with something to think about based on this source. What are the long-term impacts on a system like ours, which relies so heavily on public trust?
Right. What happens if that trust gets eroded by perceived partisanship, by the uneven application of rules?
And maybe also, how do individuals or groups, like that student watchdog group mentioned, how do they navigate or challenge these kinds of issues? How do they work towards ensuring fairness and accountability in the process? Makes you think.